Coming up on Network Africa, 5 people die in 3 separate suicide attacks in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. Residents in 2 towns in South Africa's northwest province clash with the police. And 9 people died from an unidentified disease in Liberia. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Temitope Fagbemi. We begin here in Algeria, where at least 5 people have been killed and 11 others injured in 3 separate suicide attacks on Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. The spokesperson for NEMA in the northeast, Abdelkader Ibrahim, confirmed the incident, saying 4 suicide bombers and a member of the civilian JTF are among the dead. The areas affected are Muna Yuzmanti, Muna Garach, and Muna Ethiopia. Meanwhile, the injured persons have been taken to the General Hospital Maiduguri, and response agencies are at the scene of the attack to make the area safe. Today's attack adds to the list of fresh attacks that have rocked the northeast, especially Borno state. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has assured Nigerians that terrorism and farmers-herdsmen clashes in some parts of the country will soon be a thing of the past. This comes as the federal government is making frantic efforts to bring such security challenges to an end. President Buhari was represented by the Minister of Interior, Abdulrahman Dambazau, told a summit in Kaduna State that security agencies have been given the mandate to restore peace and security to the affected parts of the country.
The summit, an initiative of the Sir Ahmadu Bello Foundation, has in attendance top-serving and retired military officers, businessmen, elder statesmen and leaders from the north. They are gathered here to discuss ways to address some of the challenges facing the region.
By 2050, 70% of Nigerians will live in northern Nigeria. With desertification, deforestation, endemic poverty, pervasive illiteracy, we can make this Boko Haram a child's play. Unless all of us here wear our thinking caps as leaders and do what is right for our people in our enlightened self-interest. Because you don't need a soothsayer to tell you that the youth are angry with us.
Extolling the virtues of Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Minister of Interior, Abdulrahman Dambazau, commends the efforts made by security agencies in conflict resolution, which he notes is key to economic prosperity.
Of terrorism, the rise of Hutu national ethnic agitations, the scandalizing effect of rampant corruption in the period of great want. We have in the last months made active strides in creating checks in the public service where this do not exist, all aimed at curbing corruption.
Elder statesman Maitama Sule makes suggestions on how to move the region forward.
Let us go into the First Republic and see how our founding fathers worked together. Let us go into the history of the former northern region and see how Sardauna was able to bring together the different tribes with different cultures and different religions together. Then we will plan for the future.
Observers are of the opinion that this summit will not be a mere talk shop, but one that will give specific ideas on how to solve the various socio-economic problems that have been hindering the development of the North for years.
A court in Zambia has rejected a bid by lawyers for detained opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema to have treason charges against him dropped. The United Party for National Development leader was arrested in a police raid on his home earlier this month and charged with trying to overthrow the government. But Mr. Hichilema's lawyers appealed, saying the charges were too vague. However, Magistrate Greenwell Malumani told the packed hearing that his court does not have the authority to quash the charges and referred the case up to the High Court. Zambia was seen as one of Southern Africa's most stable countries until relations soured between the government and the opposition in August, when President Edgar Lungu's Patriotic Front Party beat the UPND in elections marred by violence. Meanwhile, Amnesty International has added its voice to those calling for treason charges against Zambia's opposition leader, Hakainde Hichilema, and 5 others to be dropped. The group condemns what it says is a campaign of persecution against members of the United Party for National Development following disputed presidential elections last year. Mr. Hichilema was arrested 2 weeks ago after failing to give way when the president's motorcade passed by. The police said that his actions endangered the president's life. The treason charges were then changed to say that he had been plotting to overthrow the government. Mr. Hichilema is still being held in custody. Former Burkina Faso leader Blaise Compaoré will be tried in absentia in the capital Ouagadougou tomorrow. He is charged with assassination related to the victims of the 2014 uprising, which saw him ousted from his presidency. A group of more than 30 ministers will authorize security forces to fire on unarmed citizens during the uprising will also be tried, and many of them will be present.
Demonstrators protested for months in Ouagadougou in 2014 when Compaoré attempted to extend his 27-year rule by trying to push through a constitutional change which would have allowed the then 63-year-old president to seek re-election the following year. Large protests also erupted in Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's second biggest town, and another town in the north. Compaoré eventually announced a state of emergency to be enforced by the army and called for talks with the opposition. The protesters stormed parliament on October 30, setting it alight. At least 3 protesters were shot dead and scores wounded when security forces opened fire on the crowd. Parliament was dissolved and a transitional government announced. Compaoré is also wanted in connection with the murder of former President Thomas Sankara nearly 30 years ago. The popular leftist leader was killed in the coup which swept Compaoré to power. Protesters in the streets of Ouagadougou had been waving photographs of Sankara and signs reading, "Sankara, look at your sons, we are fighting your fight." Compaoré had served as Sankara's deputy. He has also denied any involvement. Married to an Ivorian, Compaoré lives in exile in Côte d'Ivoire and has not been extradited.
In East Africa, a prominent Ugandan academic charged with cyber harassment after she repeatedly posted criticism of President Yoweri Museveni and his wife on Facebook has been denied bail by the courts. 42-year-old Stella Nyanzi, a university research fellow and lecturer, used derogatory terms on the president and his wife in a post on her Facebook page. The post is said to have been sparked by a dispute over the government failing to fund sanitary pads for schoolgirls, despite promises from the president to budgets for them. 72-year-old Museveni has ruled the East African nation for 3 decades. Critics say he has failed to tackle corruption, human rights abuses, and dysfunctional public services.
We think that we have proper grounds for revision, that the proceedings of August the 10th before the magistrate here will be revised, and that Dr. Stella will be released on bail, because it is her right. In the very least, the magistrate's court should have had a bail application, but to even refuse to hear a bail application, much less to explain to the accused person her right to apply for bail, was in our view erroneous. And we hope that the High Court can rectify that.
From the only thing which I'm seeing is that is the state proving to the mighty of the state. Of course, the state is a big animal to deal with an individual, and it's sending a signal to the rest that we can actually do what we've done to Stella Nyanzi. We can deny bail, we can intimidate, we can do all these kind of things that can be done. I think for me that is the only thing that we see. But saying that Stella is a threat to this country, in my view, really I don't see her as a threat to this country. The state has an obligation to protect and respect and also promote the rights of citizens. The state has has ratified international instruments and treaties of which they commit themselves to adhere to the principles and these rights that they are in. And therefore, it must demonstrate that ability and also willingness to tolerate dissenting voices. The state is called upon to do that. That even those voices that you don't agree with, you have an obligation to tolerate those voices.